Is the fascination with white racist people and white Santa Claus? I don't understand this. Why attack black Santa Claus? Right-wing political commentator and failed comedian Steven Crowder went on another racist rant about black Santa Claus and Disneyland. Here it is.
But that's the true spirit of Christmas, is making sure that we divide and conquer by race.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Which brings us to this now, that Disney World, Disneyland, they're hiring black Santas.
Oh, good.
And before we get, Dave, have you ever seen a black Santa?
I guess if I'm in the wrong mall, you?
Figurines at Dollar Tree. Now, here's the thing. I don't care. Quarterback Garrett?
Yep.
Did you want a black Santa? What about your full black relatives where they were like, I want a black Santa? If you had a black Santa show up, do you think you'd be like, oh, that must be one of his helpers from the mall?
I mean, that's obvious. All the ones in the mall, they're always the helpers.
Yeah.
I did have a family member that had the black Santa, like the glowing plastic black Santa in their yard.
How did it glow? Was it a black light?
Ouch.
You walk by Santa, your teeth turn blue?
You could just see the hat.
You see the lint?
No, he's smiling.
Here's the thing. I don't care, but this is the most blatant example of cultural appropriation that I can think of. Wearing a sombrero, Taco Tuesday, that you purchased from a Mexican is not cultural appropriation.
No.
Taking a historical figure who has been an important, arguably one of the most important cultural icons of Western civilization and changing the race is cultural appropriation. I don't care. I just don't know why it's necessary. I don't understand why people feel they need a black Santa Claus.
Historical figure, you say? Important icon. Most famous quote, ho, ho, ho. Okay, let's go down this rabbit hole. First of all, this racist rant and the content therein completely contrary to the actual historical record. Now, we know for sure that Santa Claus, as celebrated in the United States of America, is a fictional character. Not real, not historic. Actually, it's the opposite of historic, it's fake.
Notice this. This is a photograph of Santa Claus. Notice the hat, it looks like the Pope. Notice the staff. Does Santa Claus have a staff? That staff is a symbol of Egypt. He has a Christian Catholic cross on. He has a long garment on, long white beard, white man, Caucasian man, hat. Now let's look at the people around him. These people are his elves. Notice who the elves are. They have woolly hair and black skin, which is ash on a different race of people. These are Caucasians posing as Negroes, better known as Zwart Piet. Zwart Piet wasn't just one person. Zwart Piet was all the elves. Whether it was a man or woman, it was Zwart Piet. This is written in German. Andrea Graf is the author. Santa Claus and Zwart Piet in Bloomberg. Lippy. Integration. Gestelphone on Wandel of Netherlands. Nikkelbrock. This whole book is written in German. But if we go here, we look at some of the photos. I'm not going to read it to you in German, but notice Santa Claus here, same thing. Notice his elves, Pete. All of them are named Pete. Okay, we're going to go into this. We're going to see if this comedian truly knows who Santa Claus is. Look at this one. This is a flyer of Santa Claus, or Santa Claus. Notice the phallic symbol, Pharaoh's staff, Santa Claus's hat, all represents the Roman Catholic Church. Who's that? Looks like a Disney character, doesn't it? The eyes, the big nose, looks like Mickey Mouse. That's a Negro. Like I said, all the pagan holidays represent your downfall, black man. You Negroes and Native American Indians represents your downfall. Christmas represents your downfall. All right. This book was printed in 1988. I've had these books for a while. They're out of print, both of this one, and we're going to go into this one. This one also is out of print. Zwart Piet. You can look it up on Amazon. It's probably out of print too. I bought this in 2007. This was written by Anna Fox. Who's on the front? Zwart Piet. Zwart Piet with blue eyes, green eyes. All right, that's not a black man. Like I said, Zwart Piet was the men and the women. Look at this. This is a disgrace for trans Negroes who are in slavery. For not only Negroes, these are Jews, black Jews who were in slavery. This is ridiculous. This celebration of Christmas is held in the Netherlands, it's held in Scotland, it's held in parts of the Dutch lands, Spain, even in Portugal today. These Caucasians, they dress up like Halloween for Christmas. That's why we tell you, don't celebrate these days. They represent your downfall. You know, the Most High warned you too. It represents your downfall. This book was published in 1999 by Black Dog Publishing Limited. The artist and author. Let's read a little bit about what this book says. Yes, this one is in English, so we can read it. And look what it says. Zwart Piet triggers my oldest memory of fear, while during the rest of the year, our house was a safe haven into which, at the onset of darkness, I fled rapidly to escape the growing shadows of strangers on the street in late November and early December. That haven was visited by spooks who I never saw, but who left their traces. Who are these spooks? The Negroes. Candy, a warning note, a slightly misplaced shoe. I knew who they were, and that they were benign. Their presence was thrilling, a promise of mystery, candy, presents. But somehow they scared me, and that spoiled the fun, the security, the confidence. I was afraid to pass the basement door on my way to the kitchen. Who's the boogeyman? They made the boogeyman to be us, the Negroes. Afraid to go upstairs during the day, it took half a lifetime for me to stop looking under my bed before daring to lie on it. They were scared of you Negroes. Let's drop down. Dutch society, like all societies, has traditions. The Easter rabbit brings Easter eggs, pagan, brightly colored, hidden in the garden. The pagan Christmas, Christmas is pagan. The pagan Christmas tree looms over the tiny statues representing the story of the birth of Jesus. Which Jesus? Caesar Borgia. And during that part of the year when North American children try to overcome their fear of darkness, is brought on the gloom of shortening days and the increasing cold. By dressing up and going out themselves at Halloween, the Dutch are preparing for the annual visit of who? Santa Claus. That's their Messiah. All traffic in Amsterdam is stopped when the long-haired, white-bearded Bishop of Toledo sails into the city, passing the St. Nicholas Church that is named after him, the patron saint of Amsterdam. On that same afternoon in late November, he He simultaneously enters all Dutch cities on a white horse. He is surrounded by his servants, black-faced fools. All right, so I just showed you who the black-faced people were. He is surrounded by his servants, black-faced fools, mostly young. Then it says white women who jumped around, handing out candy from a burlap sack to dutiful children, shaking their birch branches to frighten the naughty. The very bad children might be put into the sack once it's empty and taken back to Toledo, not be returned to their families until the following year. I was bad, but never that bad, apparently. So who are these bad children? These were Jews. We're going to read on, and then we're going to go into what we were talking about the Jews. In answer to the typical child's question, where does all this come from? I was told that the Bishop of Toledo had once saved children from being cooked in a huge pot. This was true. The evidence was engraved in stone and a relief on the church named after him. His fondness of children gave him eternal life. Sounds like Christ, doesn't it? Each year he came back to our country, to our town, to celebrate his birthday. But they say that Jesus' birthday was on December 25th. No, it was a false pagan god named Santa Claus. AKA, they also call him Jesus. It says, by giving us children presents. I was very lucky to live at just the place where he came. We only had to answer his questions when he visited our school and sing for him. His golden book contained a record of how good and bad we had been doing that year. When was Jesus born? The real Jesus of Nazareth? It was during the springtime, during the Passover, as we read in Luke chapter 2. It says that every year his parents would take him to the Passover, and it was around his birthday. That's in Luke chapter 2. So he was born in the springtime. Passover is in the spring. So this is another Jesus, the Santa Claus. People are waiting for him to return on his birthday. And then Zwart all the saints' servants, called by the same generic name, Zwart many in one. 3 versions of the story explain their blackness. So Zwart, the elves of Santa Claus, were slaves. They were slaves. It says the coexistence of the divergent explanations helped accommodate incongruities. The clowns dressed in colorful fool's garb were Moors. So now they're making fun of the Moors. I was told who came with the bishop from Spain, where they had been ever since the Moors came from Africa to fight the Christians. All right, so we're going to go into that too. It says they were real athletes, because y'all know that the Negroes are athletes. We're good on our feet, very nimble. So they're saying that these elves were quick. They were real athletes prancing on roofs and climbing down chimneys. Look at that. Makes you sick, doesn't it? Let's go into this book. Okay, I've been to this book many a times. But we're going to go into it now. It says, Nature Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers. Because Santa Claus began the story in Spain. So let's see who was in Spain and who were these slaves and why these slaves were black. Were they Africans or were they Negroes? Let's go into this book. Let's go to page 123. And we're going to jump down to the 3rd paragraph, and it reads, Waite says an interesting gradation of all shades down to the black is exhibited by the Jews. Especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Portugal. The Portuguese Jews were very dark, says Pritchard. The Duchess de Abrantes, wife of Napoleon ambassador to Portugal, said that the Jew, the Negro, and the Portuguese could be seen in a single person. It was the same person. So Some were called Portuguese, and they went by other religions, and some were actual Jews. Those who went by other religions were Jews that took on other religions. It's like Paul said in the book of Acts and in Galatians and Ephesians, how the Jews became pagan. It says, so dark were the Jews, especially of Portugal and southern Spain, that many whites thought all Jews were black or dark. So now you know who these elves were. All right, let's go back to this book, Zwart Piet. It says where we left off at. And then Zwart Piet, all the saint servants called by the same generic name, many in one. Many in one. Just like we read, in Nature Knows No Color Line, they all come from different versions, but they're all Jews. 3 versions of the story explain their blackness. Their coexistence of divergent explanation help accommodate incongruities. The clowns, dressed in colorful fool's garb, were Moors. Some Moors knew that they were Jews, but they still called them Moors or black. I was told who came with the bishop from where? From Spain, where they had been ever since the Moors came from Africa to fight the Christians. They were real athletes, prancing on roofs and climbing down chimneys. Perhaps in another version of the story, they weren't Moors at all, but became black from the chimney suit. That's a lie. Even though you're black as suit, we sang that explained the smudges, the white hairlines, the white behind the ears that we began to notice as we grew from toddlers to primary schoolers. Now, this is the same thing they're saying today, that the slaves that came over here from Africa didn't come as slaves. They came here looking for work. See how they start to change their stories? No more questions asked, none answered. The symbolism of white equals good, black equals evil was not spoken aloud. We just sang even though. The song continued. I don't quite remember how, but probably with something hair-raising like in your heart. I know you're good. It says here. But this thing about fighting Christians didn't bode well for their backgrounds. Why was they fighting Christians? Because they were forced to become Christians. They were forced to become Christians. We're going to read this book called The History of the Jews of Spain and Portugal from the earliest times to their final expulsion from those kingdoms and their subsequent dispersion, with complete translations of all the laws made respecting them during their long establishment in the Ibe by Elias Hayam Lindo. Let's go to page 326, and it reads, in December 1496, he issued a decree from Lucca ordering all Jews and Moors who would not embrace the Christians' faith to quit his dominions. So it says 1496 of December, he ordered all the Jews and Moors who would not embrace the Christian faith to quit his dominions. This is what we were just reading in the center clause in the Zwart Piet. It says, a day was fixed after which all who remained in Portugal were to lose their liberty. 3 months was the time allowed them. Remember, we just read that in Spain and Portugal were Jews who were very dark-skinned. So dark were they that the white Christians thought that all Jews were black. Okay? The time approached when the Jews who would not become Christians were to quit Portugal, in other words, leave. All prepared with alacrity and firm resolution for their departure. It caused Emmanuel great uneasiness to think of so many thousand men leaving his kingdom and being driven into banishment, and he was desirous at least of converting their sons. For this purpose, he devised a plan that in fact was contrary to justice and equity. Although the act was attended with the good consequences he wished, He ordered all the sons of Jews under 14 years of age to be forcibly taken from their parents, that they might be instructed and initiated in the Christian faith. How were they initiated? They were taken to become slaves and taught Christianity. This is who these people are imitating. All the sons that were taken from the Jews to become Christians. This is who they were imitating. Let's go right down. So he said, to be forcibly taken from their parents that they might be instructed and initiated in the Christian faith. This could not be executed without causing the most affecting the heart-rending scenes. It was a horrid and wretched spectacle to see tender children torn from the arms and breast of their distressed mothers, fathers who fondly held them in their embrace, dragged about to force them from their arms. To hear their cries, sighs, groans, lamentations, and female shrieks that filled the air was dreadful. Some were distracted that they destroyed their children by casting them into the wells. Others, in fits of despair, made away with themselves. These wretched mortals, talking about the Israelites, the Negroes, the Jews, were yet doomed to suffer further calamity and misery. Those who were desirous of quitting a country where they had met such barbarous treatment were not permitted. The king was so determined on making converts of this people that he resolved to induce them by rewards or compel them by necessity to embrace Christianity. How is he going to compel them? By taking them. Since by the arrangement the king was to have provided vessels for the Jews and to permit them freely to depart. But this he purposely delayed from time to time. 3 ports, Lisbon, Oporto, and Setúbal, this is Portugal and Spain, were at first assigned for their embarkation. But it was subsequently ordered that they should only embark at Lisbon, Portugal. This obliged them from all parts of the country to repair to the capital, or to that capital, which became so crowded with them that they were like sheep in a pen. They were trapped. The motive for reducing the number of the ports of embarkation by the inhuman and wily Emmanuel was that by compelling all to come to Lisbon, the limited time would expire, numbers would be unable to leave, and thus forfeit their freedom. So they gave them like a waiver for 60 days, 90 days to stay in Portugal until they could make up their mind to either become Christians or leave. Many, wearied by these hardships, became Christians. Some perhaps were sincere in their conversion, but far more were only so in outward appearance. They became crypto-Jews. To render their existence less painful and irksome, they were, however, baptized and initiated into the mysteries of our holy religion. By this means, they recovered their children and were restored to their freedom. So these people became what? Christians. They gave up their forefathers' laws, statutes, and commandments, which was a covenant that the Most High bestowed upon them. The king was extremely kind to these and gave them great encouragement, so that many Jews continued to live comfortably in the Portuguese dominions. Such was the mode used to bring about the conversion of this people. All right, so a lot of people, even though they stayed, they eventually became Christians. But it must be owned, it was unwarrantable. All right, so we'll stop right there. Let me show you something. How when our boys, because it said here that all the boys under 14 years of age were forcibly taken. See that? They were forcibly taken from their parents. So what happened to them? Let's look over here. So this is in the 1100s and the 1200s. This is in Europe. What do you see here? They're trying to get them to convert, the parents to convert. These are Jews. These are what they also may be Moors. Gave up the Israelite faith, gave up the Jew faith to become Islamic. Because Islam was a big religion too. It was a war between Christianity and Islam, two big religions. And we got trapped in between them two. Look at this over here. This is the conversion. Who's up here? Two Caucasian men. Okay, they're trying to get them to convert. See that? And it's so antagonizing. These men here, they are seeing that these men will not bend. Let's look at the dialogue on this. This is 105 and 106. Limburg brothers. David proclaiming the glory of God. The apostles preaching. Tress riches ours. Of the Duke of Berry. So yeah. So when we didn't convert, this is what happened to our boys. See that? What is he? He is a slave. Now, you don't have to look at this picture to figure out that he's a slave. 146. 146. Peter Lilly, portrait of Elizabeth Murray, countless. They didn't say that he was a slave, but just looking at this, you know that he is a slave. These are the boys who were forcibly taken. Not only that, the Native Americans, y'all didn't escape either. Y'all was taken on the ship too. You guys were over there too, look. Slave. Look at this. These are the boys that were taken as slaves. They were going to be taught Christianity. Look at this one. Taught Christianity. This one. Caucasian woman, black slave. Zwart Pete's. See that? Look at this one. He's a slave. Young boy. Who do you think this young boy was? He was a Jew. Yet, you brothers and sisters want to celebrate Christmas. Look at this one. Caucasian woman. Young black boy. Helping her get dressed. None of these pictures state that these are slaves, but they are. This book is called The Inquisition of the Middle Ages by Henry Charles Leah. Go to page 17. Look here. Heretics of all sects were outlawed. Who are the heretics? We just saw it in the book. The Jews and the Moors. Heretics, in which were all black. Zwart Pete's. Heretics of all sects were outlawed, and when condemned as such by the church, they were to be delivered to the secular arm to be burned. If through fear of death they recanted, they were to be thrust in prison for life, there to perform penance. So a lot of the parents got thrown into prison for life. Dungeons, while the children became slaves. Zwart Pete's. If they relapsed into error, thus showing that their conversion had been fictitious, just like we saw in the other book, where the parents gave up their beliefs to become Christians so they could have their children. Same thing here. says if they relapsed into error, thus showing that the conversion had been fictitious, they were to be put to death. All the property of the heretic was confiscated, and his heirs disinherited. That's what we saw with the children on the pictures. His children to the second generation were declared ineligible to any positions of emolument or dignity, unless they should win mercy by betraying their father or some other heretic. They put the children against the parents. All credence, fathers, defenders, receivers, or advocates of heretics were banished forever. Where were they banished to? Parts of Africa, parts of the Middle East. Okay, we have documents on that. Their property confiscated and their descendants subjected to the same disabilities as those of heretics. See that? So these are the things that happened. And this happened during the time of what? This month, December. It says, we're going to start here where it says the lands of any temporal lord who neglected for a year after summons by the church to clear them of heresy were exposed to the occupancy of any Catholics who, after exterminating the heretics, were to possess them in peace without prejudice to the rights of the suzerain, provided he had offered no opposition. When the papal inquisition was commenced, Frederick Hastin in 1232 to place the whole machinery of the state at the command of the inquisitors, who were authorized to call upon any official to capture whomsoever they might designate as a heretic, and hold him in prison until the church should condemn him, when he was to be put to death. This is what happened to our people in Spain and Portugal. It's the Inquisition. Go back to this book. It's War Pete. So now we understand a little bit more, even when it comes to the Christmas tree. Like we read, the Christmas tree is a representation of the story of the birth of Jesus. But what does the scriptures say about the Christmas tree? Jeremiah chapter 1 and 10. What does it say? Jeremiah 10 and 1. Hear ye the word which the Most High speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Most High, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. They look at the tree and they think of Jesus. This is his birthday, when it's really a false fable of Santa Claus's birthday. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen, with the axe. You saw those in front of all these stores, all these trees. You wanted to buy one for your family, you put it in your house. They deck it with silver and with gold. The Most High is going into detail now. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. You see them in everyone's front window, who got a front window. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born. How are you making it be born? On Christmas Day. You guys put gifts all around it to make it be born, to make it seem like Jesus gave you those gifts. Because they cannot go, be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. Why? Who's putting those gifts under there? Those, the parents and the people who put stuff up under the trees are the evil ones. They follow the phallic symbol of Santa Claus. Santa Claus. So who are those who have sinned? It's those who put the gifts under the tree, under a phallic symbol, that bend down to pick them up, that bow before their Lord and Savior, Jesus. They came through the chimney at night to put their cookies there. That is not the Jesus that the scriptures are speaking of. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4. 2 Corinthians 11 and 4. For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus, whom we have not preached. Did Paul preach about this? Did Timothy preach about this? Did the prophets preach about this? Did Yahawashi preach about a tree Well, if you receive another spirit when ye have not received, or another gospel which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with, you might as well be with that person who causes sin. You believe in that thing, you follow it, you're in sin. Revelation chapter 11 and verse 10. It says, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. Rejoice over who? Rejoice over the fall of the Israelites. They're going to rejoice over the fall of the Israelites. They're going to rejoice over our fallen. They're rejoicing. See this? They're rejoicing. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another. Under what? Under that tree. Because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. That's why they made them give up their beliefs and become Christian. See that? They made us become Christian and forget our laws, statutes, commandments given to us by our Heavenly Father, Yahawah. That's what happened. And we failed to keep the faith and the testimony of Christ because we didn't understand the difference. We saw another Christ through the false doctrine of these heathens. Okay, going back into this book called Zwart Piet, said that they would make merry over us because these two prophets tormented them. The two prophets are the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom of Israel. But we failed because we failed to keep our Father's laws. So now they speak evil against us and they make merry. This says here, black equals evil, equals devil, come what may. So much for the moralizing, educational background of the tradition. On those rare occasions when I saw a black person, I said, or thought, a Zwart Piet who missed the boat. Missed what boat? We just read about how the ports shrunk and our people were sent to Portugal for 60 to 90 days. They missed the boat, those children, and has to spend a year here. Poor guy, even if the guy was a woman. The irony of the fantasy never struck me. During the years when I believed in Santa Claus, up to the age of 7 or 8, I never spoke to a black person, nor did one ever come to our house. No students at school were black, but then none were boys either. By the time I saw through the mask the line between the black face and the white hairline, the piece of string attaching Santa Claus' beard, the day the golden staff made of cardboard broke, I felt the sadness of broken dreams. Believed in Santa Claus. Even then, I vaguely sensed that my childhood was about to end, but soon I might be asked to be Zwart Piet, make fun of us. If only I wasn't so clumsy with my body growing faster than I could gracefully handle, I could be legit as a tomboy. In a convoluted way, for me as a white girl, black also connoted freedom. So they were going to make merry of us. Like all European societies, Dutch society has changed. All right, so they change, but the fallacy or the pagan holiday stays the same. Top of the page, it says, aware of the problematic nature of this particular tradition, one year the Dutch tried to have Zwart Piet with faces that were painted red, blue, or green. It was a crucial moment and it failed. Nobody liked it. So now there's black again. Too bad. An opportunity to continue a tradition but adapt it to changing times. Out the window. Down the drain. Of course, today no culture would invent such a racist tradition. Yeah, your culture created the tradition. The Caucasian race created this tradition. This one is particularly troublesome, with racism being worked over by classism. Zwart Piets are servants, slaves, and sexism. They are feminized. The clownish behavior even flirts with the traditional question raised in the 16th century and again in the 18th, right up to abolition, of whether blacks were quite human. So it gets into Sword Pete and black society. Goes right back into the discriminating scheme. So Christmas is all about racism. I'm going to end it with that. I just want to give you guys a brief rundown of Christmas, that Christmas is not what you thought it would be. Christmas is a racist, pagan holiday that shows the downfall of the Negroes and the Native Americans, and it will always be that way. Oh, one more thing to show you what we did in the Americas. This is a book called Black Indians by William Loren Katz. And I'm going to go to page 33. Between the races, we cannot dig too deep a gulf. That's the name of the chapter. It says in 1522, this one, the natives and the blacks were living amongst each other and were subject to slavery. In 1522, Europeans in the Americas first learned that slavery did not easily lead to enormous wealth. On Christmas Day, African and Indian slaves on a plantation owned by Diego Columbus rose and murdered their masters and overseers. Wait a minute. It said African and Indian slaves, just like we just saw in the other books, that not only was blacks in slavery in Europe, but also Indians were enslaved in Europe, and they were also Jews. Nearby Native Americans joined the rebels. The beautiful island of Hispaniola shook with the first recorded slave rebellion in the New World. When did it happen? During Christmas. The conspiracy had spread across the sprawling sugar plantations in the weeks before Christmas. Word of mouth. Patiently, the plotters waited until Christmas Day, when the planters and their families would be bloated with food, soaked with liquor, and too weak or sleepy to offer much resistance. Then they struck, plunging into the night to kill whites and find freedom. See this? This is what our forefathers did, because this was not our holiday. This was not a holy day. This was a pagan day, Christmas. And with that, we're going to end this. Just wanted to give you something to reminisce and meditate on while you're eating your turkey and your chicken on Christmas Day, celebrating Christmas Day, like most of you, I know you are doing today, thinking nothing is wrong with it. But your forefathers died on this day and resisted the chains of slavery. With that, I'm going to say shalom.
All right? You don't have to celebrate Christmas to understand the disconnect between having a white figure be the person that everybody says is holy. All right, they've done this historically. The white male-dominated social structure in the United States of America has always given us white figures, or they turned them white and said these are the ones worthy of your admiration. Jesus was not white either. They turned him white. Okay, although Saint Nicholas has been portrayed in icons as a white man with rosy red cheeks for centuries, a modern day forensic study of the bishop's bones discovered that he resembled a light brown man of color, okay? This is the history of Saint Nicholas. Meanwhile, a cathedral built in Bari, Italy, this is in 1087, to honor the saints depict him as a Middle Eastern man with very dark skin. According to Psychology Today, the Turkish-born saint looked, and I quote, much more like Osama bin Laden than today's average white man or Coca-Cola's Santa Claus. Quite concerned.
I got to step in one more time. This brother is so close, but he's so far away from the truth. Saint Nicholas, this is Saint Nicholas. This is what he truly looked like. He was a black man. He was not Arab. He did not look like Osama bin Laden. He had woolly hair, all right? He had a garment on. He was not Santa Claus. He was St. Nicholas. You can see that halo around his head. He was a man of faith. He was a slave when he was a child. His parents were Jews that were in prison. And he gave because of his childhood. He went through a lot as a child, so he gave to children. But he was a miracle worker, meaning he was a healer. This man was a doctor. Okay, he was a doctor. Let's look at the insert here. It says, St. Nicholas, the Wonder Worker, from the Church of the Intercession in Boros. The length of the boards was changed at some later time. This type of iconography widely occurred in the 15th and 16th century icons. So he was around much earlier than this. This is when this painting came out of the dungeon, so to speak, came out of hiding. So this was a black man in Europe. The brother that just said that he was of a Middle Eastern man, yeah, he was a Middle Eastern. The Jews come from the Middle East. The Jews, who are the Negroes, we dwelt in the Middle East. I could do several videos on this stuff, showing that we were in the Middle East. We actually prevented the Mongols from taking over the Middle East. It was us, not the Arabs. The Arabs also used us to fight the Mongols. So there's a lot of history that's not being told, and it takes a lot of time to bring it out. But for this topic, St. Nicholas was a black man.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.